How do I document that I've met the minimum physical presence test requirements in order to naturalize? I'm Erick Widman, I'm an immigration lawyer, and we've been looking at naturalization in depth, and one of the two key requirements is showing that you meet the minimum physical presence within the US, the minimum number of days that USCIS requires in the statutory period have to be met, and you have the burden of showing USCIS that you were here. In their policy manual, they point out that simply being a permanent resident for the minimum period of time is not enough. You have to show more. You have to meet the burden. And the minimum period of time that you have to be here is half of the statutory period. So if you're applying to naturalize on your own, that's half of a 5-year period. But if you're naturalizing on the basis of your relationship to a US citizen, it's half of a 3-year period. So half of those days, you must have been physically present in the US, boots on the ground. The continuous residence test is a little more fuzzy. You're weighing factors. This is more black and white, more objective. Physical presence, were you here or were you not for the minimum number of days? One key definition to keep in mind is that a day is 24 hours. And so USCIS has confirmed that if you're leaving on a specific day, that day is not counted against you when you're traveling. Similarly, when you return that day, even if it's just for a small period of the end of the day, that day also does not count against you when you're looking at total days spent outside the US. Because by definition, the total days are over 24 hours. And so a day is defined as 24 hours. And if you don't meet that definition, you're okay. So looking at when you might have to provide extra documentation, you sometimes will be asked by a USCIS officer to provide extra paperwork, extra documents, especially when it's a close call. If you're getting close to that 50% mark, if your total number of days are making the officer think, with a little bit of incorrect math, you might not actually qualify for the physical presence minimum, then you're going to want to you'll be required to bring in proof that you were here on those specific days. Your travel history is usually good and helpful, but for example, Canadians often don't have a stamp on their passport to show when you were in the US. And so the I-94 record, the travel history, might not conclusively prove to the satisfaction of a USCIS officer that you were here and you had your boots on the ground. So some ideas for what you might be able to use to prove presence. Academic transcripts, if you're a student, those often show attendance. If you're working, your pay stubs show that you were here doing the work, getting paid. However, in the age of Zoom, you might be working outside the US temporarily. So you have to have a number of different types of evidence, have some redundancy built in to show USCIS that in addition to those work records, here's my medical record. Here's evidence that I was buying things here. And that's another key thing. When you provide credit card statements, that can be helpful because it typically shows the name of the business, the address, phone number at least. That information can be helpful. Similarly with bank statements, if you're withdrawing money from this ATM or you're using your debit card, that can all help show presence. Even your voting record, you were here at least on that day if you voted in person. These are helpful, possible options that you can use to help prove your physical presence. Be sure to keep following us and subscribe if you will. Until next time, I'm Erick Widman.